Hey, it's Damon, and we're in the beginning of this series about spiritual health for leftists. You should go watch the introduction of this whole series. That'll be helpful. And today we're going to talk about mindfulness for leftists. Very, very important. So in my last video, I talked about how everything we experience goes through the amygdala and we try to get it to the prefrontal cortex. I think of it like this. Everything you experience passes through your amygdala, this pair of almond-sized nuclei at the top of your spinal column. But as evolved humans, we have the capability to calm down, and through our breathing and our thoughts, we can enable those emotions to go through our neural pathways and reach our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that only humans have and is responsible for higher cognitive functions like language, contemplation, and rational decision-making. All that stuff is really important because if we're unable to use the higher functions that our brains are capable of, then that alarm system just gets overused. And that's one reason why so many of us can be so exhausted. And when we've done brain scans of monks and nuns and gurus and mystics, we see that they have a shrinkened amygdala and a thickened prefrontal cortex. That's really all what separates them from other people. People who are enlightened simply have a thicker prefrontal cortex and a smaller amygdala, which means they're able to approach things more contemplatively and attentively and not be so angry and fearful all the time, because that's what the amygdala does. It's the fear center of the brain. That's also what ancient sages used to call the monkey mind. It's like a monkey leaping into thin air from one branch of thought to another, never content, never at rest. And when we have an emotional response to something, an emotion is only supposed to last about 90 seconds. That's it. In order for an emotion to last longer than 90 seconds, we have to feed it and nourish it with our thoughts, thus turning the emotion into a mood. A lot of you know what I'm talking about. You feel something and then you ruminate on it and it becomes stronger and stronger because you keep thinking of it over and over and over. You can't let it go. We know how to do this really well. That's why we have to be careful what we consume and the emotions we nourish. We have to be careful to not nourish our anger, as so often is so easy, especially when you're in this space of trying to fight for justice and you're trying to get people to see the lies of the alt-right, and you wind up having to actually study and research the alt-right, and it gets really exhausting really fast, and it puts you in a terrible mood because you're searching through these videos and forums and really looking at how terrible the alt-right is, or just looking at the news and seeing how the news can lie about things, or just seeing the terrible parts of the world so that you can fight against it. It can be really difficult. We must be careful to not become infatuated. I find it really interesting that there was this anarchist YouTuber a couple years ago that a lot of people initially liked, and then he ended up turning to fascism with this video he put out called "My Infatuation with Fascism." And he started out by saying, yeah, I just was looking at this stuff and I got really infatuated. And not to say that that's what makes people fascist, but to say that I think that shows us that we have to be careful when we're digging deep into this stuff. Because if we're not careful, if we don't have a good foundation, if we don't have wisdom and contemplation, we can easily just fall into traps that feed off people becoming infatuated with them and blind them and consume them. So when someone says something directly against you or something you care deeply about, the result is an emotional response. Of course. And deep down you believe that this person is trying to make you suffer. And no one likes this feeling when your brain gets hijacked like this and it goes into fight or flight mode. And you can't just easily dismiss it even though we so badly want to. And we usually feel like if we can just get some relief from this anger, if we could just make them suffer, then we'll get relief. But that usually doesn't work. Anyone who's gotten in an online argument, or just any argument in general, knows that usually doesn't work. It usually just makes you way more angry, and you wind up leaving that conversation way later filled with so many more negative emotions than if you were to just leave at the beginning. In these moments, we have to be responsible here and pause and give ourselves a chance to transform our anger. We must come back to our breathing and wait until we're calm again. You have to take care of your own anger before responding. This doesn't minimize what they did, but you have to make sure you take care of your wounds before you get up and start trying to do something about the person who caused the wound as you're running at them bleeding out. The Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh gives the example of someone whose house was set on fire and then running after the person who set your house on fire instead of going home and putting out the flames. And by doing this and taking care of yourself first, you can sometimes realize you don't even need to respond. Either because it's usually no use arguing with dishonest strangers online, or sometimes you realize you may have had the wrong perception. You may have misread it because you're already in a bad mood. Anger is usually triggered by hurt, expectations not met, or needs not met. So when you are angry, you must pause, breathe, and ask yourself, am I hurt? Did I have expectations that were not met? Do I have needs that are not being met? That is actually what's of utmost importance. For example, I was at this talk recently of someone who I respect very much, who talks a lot about theology and philosophy, and I was with a few friends, and it was great, and then there's some parts that he was saying that I kind of disagreed with, and I asked a question, and I asked, okay, how is the next generation talking about God? Because I see the next generation is talking about God. They may not be using the same language, same words, same images and symbols, but it's clear they're talking about things like a bigger purpose and the universe and stuff like that. And he responded by saying, I'm skeptical that they even are, and he kind of dismissed my question and moved on. And I was kind of frustrated and confused, and then as the night went on and I was talking to my friends, I became angry, and as the night went on, I got even angrier, and by the end of the night, I was so angry that I knew, okay, this is like irrationally angry. I have to pause and think, what is going on within me? Why am I so angry? A lot of people don't actually reach this point. A lot of people might then go on to like attack this person or go and tell everyone how bad this person is or whatever. And I paused and actually thought about it and contemplated and breathed, and I realized, oh, the reason I have such a strong emotional response in this moment to this is because I'm realizing how the next generation talks about God, spirituality, theology, and even politics is like one of my top most priorities. Like, that's one of the top things I care about the most. And so someone putting it on the bottom of their priorities isn't necessarily a bad thing and deserves to be attacked for it, but it just shows that it's just something that I personally care a lot about. That's why I had such a strong emotional response. And so all these little practices fall under this category of what we call mindfulness. I like the definition of mindfulness given in this little book right here. Mindfulness on the go, simple meditation practices you can do anywhere by Jan Chozen Bays. This is a good little, this is like $9. This is a good, really good little introduction. It's got a little introduction on mindfulness and like 20-some practices that you can do. Super easy, super simple. I'm also going to put a link in the description to also give some more practices of mindfulness that you can check out. But here they define mindfulness as, and every word in this definition is really important. This is why I love this definition. Mindfulness is deliberately paying full attention to what is happening around you and within you in your body, heart, and mind. Mindfulness is awareness without criticism or judgment. Every word of that, yes, that's what mindfulness is. And it's really about being able to pause and slow down and be fully aware, fully present, and fully engaged. And mindfulness practices could be things like watching your hands while you're doing basic tasks like opening the fridge, grabbing your keys, whatever, or even mindfully brushing your teeth, only focusing on that one task and nothing else. Or going somewhere in public and just sitting and listening and feeling, being aware of all the sounds, being aware of how it feels on your skin for the wind to touch it, just being fully aware, fully present, only paying attention to what's happening right here, right now. Or it could even happen in interactions with people, talking to someone with the full awareness that this person could die tonight. That is a mindful way of interacting with someone. Or even simply learning how to just sit and breathe. Just breathe. Focus on nothing but your breath. A helpful thing to do that is to have a little silent mantra in your head while you're breathing, saying in your head, breathing in, I am aware I'm breathing in. breathing out, I am aware that I'm breathing out. And we'll touch a little bit more on that and the effects of that in the next video when we talk about meditation in particular. And like I said in the last video, these are some of the ways that we refuse to let the fascists win by actually caring about your spiritual health, your emotional health, your mental health, making sure you're full functioning, reaching your full potential in order to fight the good fight that we're fighting. That is how we win. Okay, the sun is starting to hit me through these leaves above me, so we should go. Keep an eye out for the next video in this series on meditation for leftists. And if you subscribe to me, you could see some more videos like this. That would be great. And if you want to hear me talk about everything I talk about on YouTube in a more freeform and interactive way, follow me on Twitch, where we stream right now every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll see you over there tonight if you tune in. And I would greatly appreciate any support from y'all through my Patreon, patreon.com/Damon Garcia. Want to be able to do this stuff more for you all, so shout out my 2 new patrons, New Transcendentalist and Rob Hutton, and my patrons Karen in Colorado, Ranger Jenny, Refined Your Scene, James Finlay, Jacob McCarthy, Jack Theory Plebe, and Mike Lodato. Thank you all for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.